If you want to grow lettuce from seed, there are a few things that you should know. There are several categories of lettuce and a plethora of varieties to choose from. Each packet of seeds holds the potential to grow a ton of lettuce. With a steady hand and a few special techniques for seeding, you'll be swimming in salad greens before you know it. Lettuce can be grown for baby leaves or as a perpetual harvest using the cut and come again method. Succession plantings can be made in a container, raised bed, or a planting row throughout the cooler seasons, and they will survive light frosts. In this video, I'm sharing my method for how to divide lettuce plants, special techniques, and more details on how to grow this marvel of the season. I'm Scott from New Garden Road, always out here to inform, inspire, and elevate you. Encouraging biodiversity and restoring habitat is my mission. One garden at a time. When you visit your local nursery, you may find some lettuce transplants in the greenhouse. Now that's a great way to get things started easily, and you'll be able to harvest that lettuce more quickly. However, it's less cost effective than when you plant it from seed. When you plant seeds directly in the garden, this eliminates the whole transplanting step, which can inflict some stress on those plants, set them back a little bit, they'll have to recover. Just takes them a little while to bounce back. But in planting directly in the garden, you do put your tender seedlings in closer proximity to ground-dwelling insects. So that's not really great because when you have moist soil conditions, like when you're starting seeds, a roly-poly or something comes along, they will munch those seedlings down really quickly. When you start seeds in trays, you have a little bit more control over the situation. You can do this inside, but you will need some supplemental lights. A bright window is not enough. You'll need some fans. You want to create some resistance to those seedlings as they grow and develop so they're stronger before they go outside. And you'll also need to harden them off prior to planting them in the garden, which takes about a week. So as you can imagine, it's going to take a little bit longer in that process to get them through to harvest. I've been developing a method for starting my seeds in trays outside. I use a pallet that's raised on some blocks, and you could do the same thing on a potting bench or a table. This ensures that I have plenty of bright sunlight on my seedlings, so they're less likely to be leggy. However, they are exposed to environmental conditions, so if it gets too cold or too warm, I have to put some cover over them. But I think one of the biggest advantages to planting in seed trays is that you can do successive sowings. You can plant a little bit, get those in your garden, get them growing, and then you can plant some more. You can do that throughout the growing season as long as you've got enough time to get them through to maturity before weather conditions turn unfavorable. Now, lettuce seeds are super tiny, so I highly recommend that you consider using a seeding tool. If you do it by hand, it's just going to be more tedious. And also keep in mind the weather conditions. If you're planting seeds outside and it's really windy, super easy for those seeds to just fly out of your hand. Now, lettuce germination is aided by light, so don't cover them too heavily. I don't cover my lettuce seedlings at all. I simply firm them into the soil, and that's been sufficient. If you want to grow some baby lettuce really quickly, you can simply broadcast in an area. Don't even worry about the spacing whatsoever. And in roughly 3 weeks, those seeds will have sprouted and grown. You can go in there and harvest about 2 inches from the soil level. That will assure that you have enough of the plant left there and it will actually regenerate. So you can do several cuttings like that, and this is what's referred to as the cut and come again harvest method. Alternately, you can target final plant spacing, which is generally 6 to 8 inches for a big head of lettuce. Historically, I've planted my seeds directly in the garden, but I've been inspired to try something new, so I've started them in seed trays, and now I'm going to show you how I like to divide them. What I've got here is your average kitchen spoon, and I'm going to utilize this in removing this plug and separating these lettuce seedlings. The reason I like this is because it's kind of got a tip to it, although it's more blunted, and it's got some width to it. It's pretty thin. What I like to do is go in around all 4 sides typically and kind of move it back and forth gently. And the key to this process is to be gentle the entire time. You also have to be steady, so that plug just kind of popped out there once I loosened all 4 sides. This is somewhat of an intuitive process. You have to develop a feel for it. But when you do, I could kind of feel like it was coming out all in one piece. I don't know really how to describe that to you, but you can kind of watch it carefully, really go slow. Okay, I did pretty good. Once I've got it out, here I'm gonna remove some of the excess soil. Once I do that, I use this end of the spoon to go in here, kind of divide the seedlings. This one is coming apart really easily. It feels like I can start working with my hands now. You have to feel the resistance as you go. There's not really any resistance here. So that came out pretty easily. I'm just gonna lay it there for a moment. When you start to pull them apart and you feel some resistance, sometimes I'll go and try another one and just kind of cycle through, pulling on them gently one at a time. Maybe I go back with the spoon and loosen it some more. And these are ready to be planted in my raised bed. I'll show you that process too. So I got another plug out there, and now I'm gonna repeat the process, just being really deliberate but gentle, moving away some of the loose soil, exposing the roots. Now I'll begin to use the spoon, wedge it in between the roots, give it a turn. You'll feel the root mass slowly begin to loosen up and relax. Alright, it's loosening up pretty well. Now it's kind of less of a plug and more of like a flat mass. So it looks like 5 seedlings here. Alright, so I'm gonna just start at the top here. I hold it near the base of the plant. Just pull it away gently. That one feels free. There it is. Just gonna set it to the side. Here's 2 together. Pretty close. Hold one. Pull the other away. It's coming apart pretty easily. Okay, looks good. So I've got 7 seedlings. I just wanted to show you a different variety of lettuce because likely it's going to react different as I separate them. This one feels a little bit more committed to the cell, so I'm coming in from another angle. It's coming up. Looks good. Okay, we did it. I don't know if it's exactly how I'm doing it, but they tend to kind of flatten out like that, see? They're just ready to come apart. That one feels a little more stuck. I'm not gonna force it. I'm gonna move on to the next one. Yeah, it's got a deep root down there like the other one. Keep moving. Just let them hang there. If one doesn't want to go, try another one. Just like working it with the spoon initially, over the course of a few moments, it's going to relax. It feels, a little bound right in here. So I'm gonna take my spoon and go back in and just kind of poking at it. Moving it to the left and to the right. See if I did it. Cool. So I think this is good. I just want to show you another example. See, it had a little resistance, but I felt okay pulling it. They feel like they're ready now. 9 little lettuce babies. Look at that. Tiny but mighty, I'm telling you. I know they don't look like much, but if you're gentle and you get them in, take care of them over the course of the next 2 weeks, they are going to grow rapidly. Now that I've showed you an example of how I separate them and how that goes through in the different stages, I want to show you a few things about how I get them in my raised bed. Number one, let's talk about how we get to spacing. This is square foot garden spacing, essentially. On the back of the seed pack, it may tell you to plant seeds every 2 inches and thinned every 4 to 6 inches with rows 8 to 10 inches apart or something like that. That's not an exact reading off a seed pack. In square foot gardening, you don't really space the rows, meaning there's no 8 to 10 inch spacing between rows of lettuce here. The lettuce is spaced every 6 inches. That's going to be 4 plants per square foot. So I've got a little grid here that will help you see this. I just took some 14 gauge galvanized fencing and cut it up. It's not the sturdiest structure, but I tell you, I've been using this for years, and I just use this green garden tape in order to break it down into 4 sections. This is 6 inches across, this is 6 inches, so 6 and 6 is 12. So you can visually see how 4 per square foot shapes up in a square foot garden. At this point, I do like to amend the soil, and what I've been using is some leaf mold compost, just a little bit. It's going to add some nutrients, some organic matter, inoculate with beneficial bacteria, fungi, maybe about a tablespoon or less. A little goes a long way. All right, now I'm going to go in with the worm castings. It's about the same amount. Okay, that should be good. I do want to mix it up a little bit, so I'm just going in with my hori knife, punching it down. That's enough to mix it in with the existing soil. I'm not really digging a hole. I don't need to do that. These are somewhat bare root plants, but I'm going to use my hori knife when we get ready to actually put them in there, and I'll show you. All right, so I basically just gathered them all up in my hands, and now in the sequence of events, I just go ahead and lay them down where I'm going to plant them. Just being real gentle. All right, so now I got them where I want to plant them. I don't always use the hori knife, but sometimes it's helpful to kind of open it up a little bit. Essentially, I'm just eyeballing it, so the lettuce seedling looks like it's at about the level where I want it to sit. And from here, I use my hand to push in the soil and begin to firm it in. And I just kind of continue to do that gently, using a couple fingers, one finger. All right, that's planted, but I'm gonna go in here, almost make a bowl shape, because we are going to follow up with some watering here, and I'll show you how that comes into play. In the meantime, I'm going to continue this planting. See the roots there. A lot of times you can just use one finger. Okay, I've got all this planted. Now I want to show you how I water them in. I've got this small watering can, and I really like it for a couple reasons. I'm gonna fill it up here with my big watering can. I like the smaller watering can because I'm better able to control the delivery just simply from the design, and the volume of water is also lower. So let me show you. I don't want to water the lettuce seedling directly because that could mat it down to the ground. Oftentimes I do more than one pass. The soil is not really particularly dry, so 2 passes is probably good. And then I usually come back and do another pass with liquid seaweed. But you see how easy to control that was and how gentle the flow of water was? It's really important. You don't want to disturb things any more than you have to. And also you can see how the bowl shape or the berm that I was making around the seedlings comes into play. It helps to channel the water to the seedlings. I'm really going from the outside in like that. With each pass, the water will seep in a little bit deeper. That's important. Looking really good. As I divided my lettuce seedlings this year, I ended up with some extra, and what I decided to do was replant those in a seed tray. I added some fresh mix in there. I let those grow out a little bit longer, probably 4 weeks total, and then I've got them planted in another raised bed. So this is a whole second round of lettuce from the same sowing. And as those lettuce plants begin to mature, if you plant enough of them, you can simply go cut the outer leaves, just a couple off of each plant, and that would also be considered the cut and come again harvest method. But at some point, you may choose to go in there and cut the entire head of lettuce. Although established lettuce plants can withstand temperatures into the upper 20s, when they're young, it is best to protect them from cold temperatures. Really anything under 50 degrees. In particular, those first 3 weeks after they get growing, they're very susceptible, and what can happen is later on in their development, they may be more predisposed to bolt, which is they're going to go to seed and flower. So lettuce isn't just lettuce. As it turns out, there are several exciting categories to be explored. The most well-known is perhaps romaine or cause lettuce. These form upright, elongated heads with thick ribs and crinkled leaves. And these aren't just for salads. Try cutting one in half and giving it a quick sear on your grill. It's said to be one of the more nutritious types of lettuce, and it's moderately tolerant of heat. Varieties that I've grown include Jericho and Mayan Jaguar. Rawr. Loose leaf lettuce is another widespread type. These are non-heading and generally heat tolerant. Probably the easiest lettuce to grow, they form tender leaves that grow around a stalk. I've grown black-seeded Simpson, deer tongue, red sails, Thai oak leaf, red salad bowl, and Strella green. That one's really cool. Then there's crisp head and Batavian lettuce. These form tightly folded, blanched, crisp, sturdy leaves, but they do require a long cool season to mature. I'm growing the Nui Nui, and I've also grown Summertime. Bib or butterhead lettuce is one of my favorites. These small loose heads are tighter towards the center. The tender and smooth textured leaves are simply delicious, and they'll form a blanched yellow interior. And these are slightly more heat tolerant than crisp head varieties. And there's one type called buttercos, which has characteristics of both Bib and romaine lettuces. I've grown one variety of this type called Winter Density, and it was a truly beautiful lettuce. What about the Texas heat? When I see notes on a seed package of lettuce that talk about heat resistance, I think, really? It's not your average heat down here, and furthermore, the temperatures are up and down throughout the growing season. We can fluctuate from the 80s to the teens in December, and then from the 50s to the 80s in February. Planting at the right time is essential, and for me that's late September through early March. And I utilize succession planting during that time to replace harvested or damaged and bolted plants. Applications of liquid seaweed and organic rev can help enhance cellular integrity. This will make those leaf surfaces more resilient and better able to handle environmental stress. 40% shade cloth can be used to help to keep the soil temperatures cooler, and that can play a big role in triggering lettuce plants to bolt. Shade cloth can be essential under full sun conditions in southern growing zones. Just assure you have adequate airflow, otherwise you may accidentally trap some heat under that shade cloth. I do this by keeping the north side of my low tunnel structures open. Yeah, so what I like to do is anytime the weather's trending in the range of 75 degrees or higher for an extended period of time, such as it did this week, and we hit 80 a couple times, then I'll put up some shade cloth. I've got a really simple hoop house structure. It only really takes 2 parts, some rebar and some PVC. And from there you can put a variety of covers here. If we get some freezing temperatures, I can put frost cloth or row cover. Still letting lots of light through. It's just keeping it down so that these seedlings won't get stressed, won't be triggered to bolt or wilt from the stress that they've had of the recent transplant shock. Bolt resistant ratings for different types of lettuce from high to low go like this: loose leaf, followed by romaine, butterhead, bib, and finally crisp head. The weather in my Texas garden from fall through spring can vary widely, but lettuce varieties such as Jericho, red sails, and the bib type lettuces generally do really well for me. And a couple of notes on harvesting lettuce. Glucose content is higher early in the morning, so an early morning harvest will yield the best flavor and they'll also store better. Harvesting during warmer parts of the day may result in wilted lettuce, and it also won't store as well. But if that happens, or you just don't have another choice, you can try cold shocking it in an ice water bath, and this will often revive lettuce and other greens. That's an overview, literally. Whoops. Hello, bee. Whoops. They're tiny but mighty. Now check out more awesome gardening videos, like this video, and follow New Garden Road for weekly content. You can grow your own food. Keep it organic.